And good morning, good morning. Welcome to another brand new, amazing course, God willing, with Hashem's help over the next 6 weeks. We're going to be exploring the biggest questions of life from the perspective of Jewish wisdom, but most importantly, from the perspective of not just Jewish wisdom, but Jewish mysticism, Jewish spirituality, what we'll call Kabbalah. And I actually want to mention, because 2 years ago, a bunch of you joined us for our World of Kabbalah course, which was, and that was the real heavy-hitting Kabbalah. Yeah. This is going to be Kabbalah, but we're focused on our personal lives. We're not focused so much on the ideas, on the philosophy. We're here to talk about ourselves. Okay. The story goes that Albert Einstein was once on a train, and the conductor walks in collecting the tickets, and he jumps up and runs to the conductor and says, Conductor, I need your help. I lost my ticket. He's frantic. I lost my ticket. So the conductor takes a look at him and says, Albert Einstein, Dr. Albert Einstein, I know who you are. Don't worry about it. I know you wouldn't just, you're a stowaway. No, take a seat. I know you bought a ticket. So Einstein says, no, you don't get the issue. I don't know where I'm going. That's a big question. Where are we headed? We're in the search for meaning, on the search for purpose. Today we live in a world where, on the one hand, we've never been more comfortable. We've never before had such a luxuries like we have today. And one of the luxuries that we have is also time, is the ability to self-reflect, the ability to think about ourselves, have a certain sense of self-awareness, which I don't think people had so much in the olden days. You need just a time to process your life and to make choices in life. I was just reading up about this. I'm currently reading a memoir, if you guys want to interested in, of Jewish life in the mid 1800s in southern Ukraine, Galicia as it was called then, Crimea. Jewish life, and it's terrible. Jewish life is terrible. It's beautiful and it's terrible. Shtetl life was extremely difficult. One of the things you see over there is how hard people worked. In the olden days, in the pre-war times, life expectancy was not that high. And what they would do is, people used to die young, very young. And what they would write in the official records, and the official talking point was they died from overworking. They worked too hard, they died. And in this memoir, for example, the one that I'm reading, this guy says, I lost my mother when I was 5. I lost my father when I was 7. They both worked too hard to the point that they just collapsed and just got so weak and died. Today we know that it wasn't overwork. It was what we call malnutrition. There was just nothing to eat. There was no proteins. What were you eating? Potatoes. There was very little food. And these people just didn't have a choice. They worked and worked and worked. Not only just to be comfortable, just to make the basic ends meet on the most basic level. Just to have a little bit of money to pay, to have a little bit of wood so that your family could be warm tonight when you sleep, and a little bit of bread. Today, thank God, we live in a time of tremendous affluence. It's a very gifted time to live in. But that also gives us time to ponder our reality. And as current mental health backs this up, people that self-awareness that we have the luxury of getting ourselves into is actually starting to create a lot of pain within us as people. Now that pain could be high-level depression, but you don't even have to go there. Every single one of us know the experience of sometimes feeling a little bit of an emptiness. What am I here for? What's life really all about? And sometimes it's specifically in moments where we even feed ourselves well. We give ourselves all the luxuries and all the amenities that modern life could afford us, but there's still something that's missing. That's what we're here to discuss. Years ago, I remember hearing this story, and it's just so interesting. When computers first started, today we have artificial intelligence, which is, the real next big thing. When computers just started coming out, there was a teacher of Hasidus, call him a professor, not a professor. He was a mentor to young students. He says, now the computer could do so much more for us, so much of manual labor that we had to do, now we could rely on computers to do. So what's left for us now? What's left for us now, this is showing us what really, really matters. What really matters is that we could connect more on a deeper level, learn more Torah, learn more Chassidus, be real people. Be real people. AI today especially. It's a very scary thought that a lot of intern jobs are right now going out the window. How do you call it? Like in every legal office, you have the junior people. What do? You got to start off in a firm somewhere. So you start off as somebody who just, what's the official word? Paralegal? No.
Yeah, the paralegal.
The paralegal?
Gopher.
The what?
Gopher.
No. Okay.
The apprentice.
Yeah, the apprentice. Collecting. Today you don't need the young guy anymore. Why pay him? You can have a machine do all of this. What's at the core of humanity? At the core of humanity is for us to truly be in touch with ourselves, to be human, to be living the lives that we were designed to live. And that question has never been a more shrieking question than it is today in the 21st century for us, for our children. And that's why we're here to do what we got to do. One last joke before we get into it. Jewish jokes are very deep. Because Jewish jokes are not just a funny joke. They're not just like a knock-knock joke. They contain very deep truths. And sometimes Jews are uncomfortable to talk about truths. So we just dress it up in a joke. But really, it's a truth. So here's a classical Jewish joke, which has one layer of meaning, but has a much deeper layer of meaning as well. Hey, how you doing? Good morning, good morning. All right. There's still a chair back there, and okay. We got to huddle in a bit over here. So there's a book in the box. Take a book. How you doing, Cliff? Right, Cliff, yeah? Okay. New York subway in the 1970s. And there's a Jewish immigrant, there's 1 second. Here, Rachel. No, don't worry. We got to get you a chair. There's one chair right over here in the back.
I'll find a chair.
And then, okay. All right. Okay. I'm sorry, Rachel.
No, don't.
But we got to make yourself comfortable. All right, Cliff, you can bring a chair over here. We got space over here. All right. You can bring it here. You don't have to sit all the way in the back. All right. 1970s New York City subway. On a subway cart, there's a Jewish immigrant. And he starts muttering, "Boy, am I thirsty." Thirsty, right? Boy, am I thirsty. Just nonstop. That's his mantra. Boy, am I thirsty. It's just got so annoying that on one of the stops, a fine Good Samaritan jumps out, quickly buys a bottle of water from the kiosk, runs back into the train before the doors close and says, Sir, here's some water. You don't have to be thirsty anymore. He says, "Oh, thank you so much." He drinks his water, and a minute later he says, "Boy, was I thirsty." Boy, was I thirsty. All right. What's the joke? What's the joke? Jews love complaining. That's it. Let's be real about it. Jews love complaining. It's a unique Jewish feature. Love complaining. Can never be happy. You did this. It's not right. It could be better. Why that? Too much negativity. But there's also an even deeper truth to this joke. And the deeper truth is sometimes things could be going right, but something's still wrong. And that's what we want to... So I don't want to frame this class as here. We're not here to talk about problems. We're not here to talk about anything negative. But there's definitely something today we're realizing we need to find more. And I just want to say this problem is especially acute with our youth. The teenagers of today, the young professionals of today, they have the best lifestyle than any teenager in history, period. And at the same time, there's something eating them up on the inside. There's real pain. What is that pain? And I would even say that we've been on this for about 10, 15, maybe 20 years as society. We've realized there's a youth mental health challenge. Who knows how much money has been invested in it? As on a national level, locally, on a Jewish level here in Jewish Detroit. I don't know. Are the results really showing for themselves? Could we say that we have materially moved the needle? We have solved this issue? I don't think so. What is it? What is it? And the answer is sometimes a little bit more simple than we think, but it's all about meaning. It's all about meaning. It's all about finding purpose. Dear friends, in the Torah, in the Bible, the 5 books of Moses is one part of the Bible, but then there's the Tanakh, as we call it, right? The whole body of Scripture. There's three parts of Scripture, of the core Jewish writings. There's the five books of Moses, there's the prophets, then there's the writings. One of the books in the writings is called, in Hebrew, Kohelet, we got a Greek translation. The Greeks gave us a translation for the word Kohelet. You want to know what it is? Ecclesiastes. Wonderful name, no? But it's called Kohelet. Okay. But if you want the Greek name, it's called Ecclesiastes. Okay. Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, was written by King Solomon, who was considered, in Jewish tradition, the wisest of men who ever lived. Brilliant, brilliant person. Very deep person. And he wrote, towards the end of his life, the book of Kohelet. Kohelet is actually his own pseudonym that he speaks in. The whole book is the script Kohelet is saying. Who's Kohelet? Kohelet is him. It's his name. King Solomon, he gives himself the pseudonym of Kohelet. And the whole book has one theme and one theme only. Let's read a little bit of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes. And we're going to be coming back to this text of Kohelet. We're only going to read the opening few lines of Kohelet. We're going to be coming back to throughout the course. But here we begin our journey. And what I'm going to do is, for those of you who are new to these courses, first of all, welcome, welcome, welcome. Big welcome if this is your first JLI course. And what we do is, we want to always anchor what we're discussing in the rich, beautiful text of Judaism. So we go around and read. So,
Tell her to come down here.
Here, Rachel, why don't you come over here?
I'm okay. I'm not going to fight.
I walked into the wrong meeting with Parrish.
What'd she say?
Oh, no. No, come on over here. But no, Eric, but then you got to help her with the chair. You got to be the gentleman of the room. All right, Eric. Don't worry, Rachel. Eric got you. No, this is good.
Now it's your turn.
There you go. Thank you, Eric. All right. And as soon as Eric is done with the chair, Eric is going to read for us text number 1 in our books on page 3. There you go. Thank you, Eric. Welcome, Rachel. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Go for it. Hit it.
The words of Kohelet, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Futility of futilities, said Kohelet. Futility of futilities, all is futile. What profit has man in all his toil that his toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but only the earth endures forever.
All right. It's a little bit of a difficult reality to think about, but man works and we toil and we toil and we toil and that's what life's all about. We're trying to accomplish a lot. But as the way he says it, a generation comes, a generation goes, the sun rises, the sun sets, and all of man and his toil just disappears. And all that's left is the earth. All right, a little bit of a sobering thought, no? It's inspiring, it's also a little bit of a scary thought. All right, we don't want to get scared over here, right? We don't want to be morbid and heavy and depressed about life. But he's trying to say, let's try to get down to the core. What is life really all about? Are we just spinning wheels on things that in the long run don't really matter? Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, psychotherapist, they used to call him the father of modern psychology, right? Who, by the way, Carl Jung actually said, if you want to know something very fascinating, Carl Jung said that I need to make a confession. All the wisdom that we have found in modern psychology has already been discovered by, he said, a great Jewish rabbi who lived 100 years before him, the Maggid of Mezrich, who was the teacher of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad, the author of the Tanya. That's what Carl Jung says. Okay. Carl Jung says that a third of my cases are not suffering from any clinically definable neurosis, but from the senselessness and aimlessness of their lives. See, this is the proof that we are very spiritual people. Deep down, we're all very, very spiritual, because we all know there has to be something a little bit more. There has to be an aim, a meaning. What's happening in life? Let's do this in one more text over here. Rachel, you do it. This is from Lisa Miller, who wrote a very, very famous book, The Awakened Brain, a New York Times bestseller. And let's read this little text. Text 2, page 3.
Depression, anxiety, and substance abuse have reached academic proportions globally. In 2017, 66.6 million Americans, more than half of the respondents on the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, reported binge drinking within the past month, and 20 million met the criteria for a substance use disorder. 31% of American adults will develop a full-blown anxiety disorder at some point in their lives, and 19% in any given year. The World Health Organization reports that 264 million people on the planet are depressed. Depression is the third most costly disability worldwide. Each year, 17 million American adults are depressed. Over 16% of youth and late adolescents currently face depression, and the impact of depression on suicide accounts for the second leading cause of death in adolescents, rivaled only by death by auto accident. While the stakes of our mental health crisis are truly life and death, many of us also suffer from less debilitating, though still painful conditions, burnout and chronic stress, trouble concentrating and connecting, loneliness and isolation, lives that are rich in the ways yet felt somehow narrow, hollow, and cut off. Even when we experience success and satisfaction, we may sense that there's more to happiness, that life could be more joyful, rewarding, and meaningful.
Lisa Miller actually says something. What was that? What was that?
I'm very impressed now.
You're saying now we're really shaking up over here. Lisa Miller says something very, very fascinating in her book. Somebody just shared this with me. She says teenage depression is a critical moment of becoming an adult. It's a very critical moment of life because it's what teaches us as a human being that we need more to life than just having a good time. We're searching for something deeper. Her argument in her book is that every single human being is deep down naturally spiritual and needs spirituality. Without spirituality, you're not healthy. That's what she says. That's not me saying as a rabbi, right? Psychologist, so it has more clout, right? Okay. But she says it's a very, very scary thing if a teenager goes through teenage years and doesn't have depression. That's a very, very bad thing. That's terrible. Her argument is that's very necessary. We as humans need to learn as we become adults, as we transition into adults, that there's something more to life than just having a good time. And that deep question, that something breaks inside of you to makes you realize that you need that. Her argument is if you have religion, if you have spirituality, if a teenager is given spirituality, then that depression is a tunnel. If you don't, then it's a deep, long pit. No way out. But if you have something, then the teenager realizes that there is something that I should be holding on to. There is something valuable in my spiritual tradition. But in any case, dear friends, what we're going to be doing is we know the problem, we know what we want to do over here, and as King David, let's get this set up over here. As King David tells us, right? There is all is futile, and only the earth endures forever. So we want to try to find meaning in life. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking to the Torah to give us the answers. Because Torah is the blueprint of creation. The Torah is the user's manual for the Jewish people and human civilization as a whole. So, if the car breaks, what do you go do? You got to go to the user's manual. The way this course is built, it's going to be like an onion. We're starting from the peripheral level, we're starting from the outside, and we're slowly going to make our way inside. So, it's going to be a journey of discovering the multiple layers of meaning. What does meaning mean? What does it entail? What does a search for meaning mean? This class is going to be the first layer, and we're going to be building upon it as we continue going along. What I want to do in this class, especially because this class is not so much about knowledge and academia, academic thought, but it's really about our own personal experiences, I want to do that throughout the class we have moments of where we should personally reflect a little bit about what we're learning. And so we have different questions throughout the class. And I want us to take a few moments as we go through the class for you to jot down on your own some thoughts on what we're learning, to process them. I'm not going to ask you to share them publicly. But let's do this on page 6. Let's start getting a little bit of a feel for what is meaning, what gives us meaning, what does not give us meaning. We have 3 questions here on page 6. The first question, describe at least one activity that brings you pleasure and that you find meaningful. What's something which hits both, pleasure and meaning? Then, describe at least one activity that brings you pleasure but no meaning. And what's something that gives you meaning but no pleasure? All right, so let's try to think of at least one answer for each of these. What do you say? Anybody wanna be vulnerable and share any thoughts? What's something which hits both? If anybody wants to share, what's both? I just said I'm not going to force you to share, but I'll ask anyways.
Jewish learning.
Jewish learning is both.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's what
Meaningful and pleasurable. But what happens if it's not pleasurable? Every time you learn is pleasurable? I'm a rabbi. I can't say every single time I learn is pleasurable.
Endorphins. It
Huh?
releases endorphins.
What was that?
It releases endorphins.
But it's true. Good learning is very pleasurable. It's meaningful and pleasurable. I like that. Very good. Why? Okay, then there's another question. Why? Why does it feel so meaningful? That's another question. Okay, well, we're not. That's not the question over here yet. But I like that answer. Yes, Daniel.
I like teaching, but I wrote down teaching my granddaughter.
Oh, your family.
And it's pleasurable because she is a sponge, even though she's only 3, she's very bright. But the meaning is that I'm telling her stuff that she'll follow through and hopefully pass on.
Right. So it feels meaningful and it's pleasurable.
Right.
Okay, let's get one more. What's something which is both? Yes.
Helping someone else get through a problem.
Helping someone else get through a problem is meaningful and extremely pleasurable. It gives me pleasure to do it. Okay. What's something which is pleasurable but no meaning?
Food.
Food. There you go. Easy. Who just said that?
Eating junk.
So honest. That's it. Not even junk food, even just food, whatever. Okay, you do it. You feel meaningful after that.
No.
What was that?
I thought
Food. You just eat food.
watching movies on Netflix.
Watching movies on Netflix. Really? It's not meaningful? Sports. Right, you go to a sports event, you drink beer, you watch a game. Okay, so what happened afterwards? It was fun, but okay, all right. What's meaningful and not pleasurable in your life?
The news.
Really?
What did he say?
The news. For me, it's neither. Not pleasurable, not meaningful.
My work.
What was that?
My work.
Your work is meaningful, but not always pleasurable.
A lot of people, that's why I'm a therapist. It's
there.
not pleasurable, but there's meaning.
But it's meaning to the thing.
Give me
Okay.
a couple more months and maybe I'll get more pleasure from it.
Okay. Yes.
Cleaning toilets.
Cleaning toilets is meaningful, but not. Why is it meaningful?
It needs to be cleaned.
No. So that's a question. Does meaningful mean that it needs to happen? It gives you meaning. It fills you with meaning.
If you don't do it, you're in trouble.
Is that the definition of meaning? Is that when somebody says, "I want to live a meaningful life"? Is that no? I'm not saying is there any utility to
No
it.
judging.
Meaning means is there?
No judging.
You're saying maybe he finds
You
meaning.
can't judge him. You can't judge him.
You're right. Meaning I can't judge. Okay, no, it's not judging. God forbid. It's trying to tease out an idea. Okay, but you're right, Eric. Okay, I don't know. One of the first things, just such an elementary idea, but I think it's very, very important to just call it out as it is. Finding internal meaning in life has very little, and maybe even absolutely nothing to do with pleasure. Right? There's nothing to do. There's no correlation. Some things are meaningful, no pleasure. Maybe they could have pleasure, maybe not. Doesn't matter. Meaning does not align well with pleasure. Pleasure does not align with meaning.
But does it?
What was that?
But does it? Like, I had a hard time finding something that's meaningful and not pleasurable, because it's all about your intent, right? If you put intent behind it, whether you are cooking or cleaning or dancing or doing whatever things in life, they could be both.
Oh, so you start with the meaning, and then you can find the pleasure.
Right.
Oh, but the search for pleasure, meaning try to pacify yourself. If there's somebody who's in pain and hurting and feeling empty, that hollowness that we just read about, right? And they try to pacify that with pleasure. That's not. You're putting the wrong thing in the wrong system. Pleasure is good for giving you pleasure. It's not good for giving yourself meaning. So what is it? There's one verse in the Torah which on a surface level means something, whatever. It's just a random law in the Torah. But our sages in the Talmud actually show us that if you just peel back one layer of what's happening in this verse of the Torah, there's unbelievable meaning over here. And that's part of Jewish belief, that there's a whole tradition that was given to Moses that the Torah is not just what it says literally. There's unbelievable amount of layers, infinite amount of layers embedded within the Torah. So here's a verse from Deuteronomy. You ready? Text number 3. Let's read the verse. I'll explain to you what it means practically, and then we'll go a little bit deeper. So Lisa, text 3, page 7.
When you besiege a city for many days, waging war against it to capture it, do not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them, for from them you shall eat, and you shall not cut them down. For the tree of the field is a human that you should besiege it.
Oh, that's it. You read it. Yeah, it's a tricky line to read at the
Yeah.
end. But it's a rhetorical question. Okay. This is the laws of war. Judaism has laws also about how is the proper way for the Jewish people to handle a war. Which, by the way, maybe we should do such a class, no? It's a very big question. How does Israel win this conflict? What's right and what's wrong in war? As Jews, we should be empowered with that information. Should we do a class like that?
Yeah.
Should we do it? I don't know. I mean, now that the dust is kind of settling, I'm saying we have a little bit of internal thought process to go through. Okay, but that's maybe another course. I don't know. We'll see if there's interest in that. I don't know, like course, maybe a class, 2-class series, maybe. This is a law in the Torah. You go into a city, you're besieging a city, you're conquering a city. Are you allowed to destroy a tree? So the Torah says. If it's a fruit tree, absolutely no. If it's just a regular tree, it's not fruit bearing, then you could cut it down if necessary. If it's a fruit tree, don't. Why not? And the Torah concludes with like a rhetorical question. Is this your enemy? The tree is who you're against over here? Is the tree a human that you're fighting against? So don't knock it down. Just don't. Okay. Comes along our sages and say the literal meaning of the verse, that this is a law about wars, is true. There's also another layer of meaning over here. This statement, for the tree of the field as a human, should actually be taken as a statement. A person is a tree. The tree is a person. Which means you want to learn about what a person is, what a human is. We learn that from a tree. And this becomes the basis of an entire, very, very fascinating idea in Judaism, that we can learn so much from a tree about what it means to be a human, because the Torah clearly is telling us that this is who we are. That's actually the reason why we as humans celebrate Tu B'Shvat. Right? Tu B'Shvat is a new year for trees. Anybody know when the new year for mountains is? New year for mountains, I don't know. New year for the solar system. Right? It's an interesting thought, no? Trees. Oh, that's what we're making a new year for. If you look in the Talmud, there's actually many different New Years. Now, New Year's is not just a cute little celebratory, symbolic thing. The reason why Judaism lists different New Years is because there's very legal ramifications for what a New Year is. There's a lot of laws in the Torah about about the proper way to grow a tree, plant a tree. You're not allowed to eat from a tree's fruit for the first 3 years. There's all the laws of tithing. So you got to know a cutoff date. When does a year begin? There's a whole 7-year cycle for agricultural laws about how Jews give tithing and give charity through their fields in the land of Israel. So when does that year start or end? Tu B'Shvat is actually a very big legal date. It's the legal cutoff date. This is when a new year begins. Till now was a previous year. But we as Jews take the New Year for trees to heart. Oh, this is a day that we're going to remember. We'll mark it on our calendars. And according to Jewish tradition, you should eat fruit from a tree. You should try to make a shechiyanu on fruit that you did not eat, either for a full year or for a full season. We celebrate the New Year for trees. There's a very deep bond between trees and humans. And therefore, it's part of our tradition to celebrate it. It's right. Tu B'Shvat. It's a weird thing. New Year for trees. What about the goats? There's a New Year's for goats. Okay. What do we learn from trees? Trees teaches us a lot about how to be humans on a simple level and even on a Kabbalistic level. What would you say? Just off the bat, what would you say are some things that are similarities between humans and trees?
Grow.
We grow. A lot of other things also grow.
Grow where you're planted.
You grow where you're planted. Oh, I like that. You grow where you're planted.
You adapt.
You adapt.
Right.
Flexibility is the key to not breaking.
Flexibility to not break. I like that. Okay.
Depend on air.
We're dependent on air.
Water.
We need water.
We're fed by the earth.
We're fed from the earth.
You have roots.
Yeah,
We have roots. We have roots, which is, I think, very similar to what, right, it touches upon what Patrick just said. We have roots, and we're stuck to those roots. We don't walk away from our roots.
But we have an ability to be transplanted as well.
Yeah, you could do that with a tree, but that's definitely not a natural thing to do with a tree. Okay, we have this premise. The premise is, okay, the tree of the field is a human. Now here's what I'm going to share with you. The number one thing about a tree, and a lot of the things we just said, you could say about a lot of other things. So trees are fed by the earth. Yeah, I'm saying everything is fed by the earth. No, more or less. A cow is also fed from the earth. Something which is very unique, and you could say that a tree is exceptional in this area, is that they are firmly anchored to their roots. They're firmly anchored to where they come from. We as humans, you don't see that connection as much, right? Humans born just like animals, we get to move on with life, move away. Go, we could physically and also figuratively move away from our roots. It's very easy. It's not something that you notice. And even other plants, a stalk of wheat. Okay, it's also, but it's not as strong as a tree. A tree, you see this. This is something which is firmly entrenched and digging in deeper, digging its heels into its roots. And our sages teach us from that a very important rule. For a person to feel healthy as a human being, we need to be firmly grounded upon our own humanity. And what I want to call that is a sense of alignment. Who am I? And then I'm aligned with what I am. The moment there's a lack of alignment with the core, not just the values of being a human, but even just the mechanical makeup. How is human being made? Right. How do you know you got to bring your car to the mechanic? You feel that friction. You feel that tension. Something's just not smooth with your car anymore. Either you hear it or you can feel it when you're driving. Okay, something's not in alignment. Something got out of its place. Something is breaking down over here. Finding meaning, Judaism teaches. The first step, very simple. You got to be in alignment with what it means to be a human being. Just like a tree is always anchored down to its roots. What am I? I'm here. Very simple premise. When there's a lack of alignment with the core of being a human being, even if it in the moment seems like the more pleasurable option or the more popular option out there, but if it's not part of the core makeup, literally the nature, how do human beings work? How are we created to function? That hurts us as a human being. And that doesn't allow us to feel healthy inside. So what we're going to be doing in today's class is I want to point to you to 4 very, very elementary but very profound attributes of what it means to be a human, which trees show us. And we're going to see how Judaism really looks at these very different than I think the way Western civilization looks at them, and sees them as core components of being a human being, and actually is what gives us the feeling, I am a healthy human being. I could wake up, I just feel settled, I feel aligned, I feel good. These are the 4. Let me tell you what they are, and then we're going to get going. Okay, so the tree does not wander, and just like us, we cannot wander away from where we are, who we are. The 4 values are growth, productivity, giving, and relationships. And you can see that in your book on page 8. These are the 4 we're going to be learning about. And with that, let's get going. Yes, Marshall?
Does productivity include reproductivity? Both humans and trees can perpetuate their species indefinitely.
Let's wait till we get there. No, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Let's see. Let's start with the first one. The first one is personal growth. I want to read to you a verse, another verse from Ecclesiastes, to begin the journey of our first layer here, growth. Let's read text number 5. Joel, we're up to you. Joel, text number 5 from Ecclesiastes, and a rhetorical question from King Solomon to us.
Ascending spirit, how many understand that the spirit of the human ascends on high, while the spirit of the beast descends to the earth?
Okay. What is King Solomon saying over here? If you look in the classical commentators that help us understand Ecclesiastes, they explain this verse as simply saying a human being has to realize that when an animal dies, it just dies. But when a human dies, their soul ascends to heaven, and there's divine reward, divine punishment. You have to know that life is not the beginning, or death is not the end. That is the way, like if you look in Rashi, the classic commentators on the page understand it. But comes Kabbalah and says, no. This verse is teaching us a very deep truth about human nature. The animal, the force of the beast, is going down. But the force of the human, not about death, always is striving upwards. Let's think about that a little bit. What is the difference? What is really the difference between an animal and a human being? Or are we just a more developed, a more sophisticated animal? Right? Which is quite the evolutionist argument. We're an animal, we come from animals, and we just evolved a little bit better, a little bit more.
Animals,
Is there a real difference? Yes.
animals are more instinctual. Survival is they need to eat, so they do what they have to do to eat. Whereas we can think, and I guess there's no.
So you're right, but I want to tease this out a little bit more. I want to give you some pushback. Animals have instincts, we have instincts, right? We have intelligence. Does an animal not have any intelligence? Some animals are brilliant. Some animals figure things out better than human beings could. Some animals we know are unbelievably cunning. Unbelievable strategy. See, like certain apes, they have just unbelievable wisdom to be cunning in the way in setting up other animals for their failure, whatever it is. Just there's definitely a lot of intelligence in the animal kingdom. So you could say, yeah, their instincts are not exactly like our instincts. They look a little bit different. But okay, is there something which we can say this is substantively something which makes us different? Or are we just on a continuum a little bit more developed and looking a little bit different, just like you also have within animals themselves? Yes?
I think humans have a conscience, or should, and so not that animals don't reason because they're smart, but if I do this, I'll get the food kind of thing, but I think we have a conscience and look at how our actions would affect other people or affect the whole world.
So we have more of a conscience, that's 100% true, and we're able to process a little bit more certain things. Practically, does that change what life looks like? Does that change us? Does that make us a totally different kind of species? Worlds apart, you can't even put us you can't put a rock and an animal in the same category, right? It is something which is such a big leap from like a rock, from a mineral to an animal, than from an animal to a human. That's what I'm trying to get to. But your answer is pretty good. A real sense of consciousness.
The divine spark is what makes us different, right?
Oh, but what's different about it? What's really different about it?
Soul that connects us to something bigger than us.
Oh, there's something that pulls us beyond ourselves. Which means like this. There's a famous joke. Jewish joke. That a kid goes to his dad and says, "Dad, where do we come from?" And Dad's like, "Why would you drive me crazy with such stupid questions? I don't know. There was apes and apes evolved. Apes evolved to humans. I don't know." And the kid goes to the mom and says, "Mom, where do we come from?" Jewish kid. And the mom says, oh, well, God decided to make a world, 6 days of creation, and God made Adam and Eve. So the kid says, Mom, I don't understand. I asked Dad, he said we come from the apes. You're telling me we come from Adam and Eve. I'm a little bit confused over here. So the mom said, don't worry about it. I'm talking about my side of the family. He's talking about his side of the family. Why do we care as Jews? It's core to Jewish belief that we did not evolve from animals, but that God created a human being to be something exceptional, something different. Why is it so important to say? That's so important because there's a very key difference between animals and humans, which really, Diane and Yulia, you did touch upon this, but it boils down to this. Animals have instincts, and we have instincts. Animals have intelligence, we have intelligence. The difference is that we as human beings are not tied down to our instincts.
Not tied down?
We're not tied down to our instincts. We're not instinctual. But our brain sits above our heart, and because of that, it takes full control. So this is self-consciousness, but it's more than just consciousness or a sense of conscience. It's the ability to override our system.
Unknown caller.
Don't answer if it's unknown. Okay.
It's spam anyway.
There you go. An animal is defined by their nature. An animal is defined by their nature. A human being controls their nature. A human being runs their nature. Does your nature run you, or do you run your nature? Animals, the way they're naturally created is that they're more horizontal than human beings. According to Kabbalah, there's a very big depth to that. That animals, their mind and their heart are on equal level. One does not rule above the other. A human being, the heart sits below the head. We could think rationally, we can make good judgment calls, and we could even change our nature. We don't have to listen to our instincts. And we can actually change our behaviors. We could regulate ourselves. We could become a better version of ourselves. That's a very, very big idea. Saying that we're just a better version of apes locks us down and excuses the concept that what could I do? I was in a bad mood. Or what could I do? I was stressed. That's what animals say. What could I do? This is what I am. A dog could be very loving. Certain animals naturally are very loving. Did the dog choose to be loving? Did the snake decide to be vicious? No. Meaning it wasn't a moral choice. It's even a bit, you can't even really say the dog is being loving. The dog is being natural. It's programmed to do this, and it's hardwired to just be that. It does this naturally. Which is why, right? You don't have mental health animals, which is a crocodile, right? It's only this dog and this specific kind of dog. Why is it being this kind of dog? Why can't there be another animal that says, I want to be because these aren't choices that they're making, right? There's no volition on their part. They're not controlling anything. It's their nature schlepping them in one direction, and they have no choice but to go in that direction. We're not an animal. We're a human. And what King Solomon is saying in this verse is that the nature of the human is to ascend upwards, not to just fall back into our primal, debased nature, to want to give ourselves pleasure, right? It's just survival instincts. We have a desire. It's natural to the human being to want to strive higher. This is a nuance which is lost in the English language, but actually Jews have always preserved this language. How do you say a human being in Yiddish? You all know the word? Mensch. A mensch. Mensch is one of those Yiddish words that even fell into the Webster's dictionary. It's considered like part of the English language, a little bit, right? Like chutzpah. What other words are there? Schlep.
Spatula.
A schlep. Spatula? Really?
Yeah.
That's Yiddish?
I always thought so.
I don't think so. Mensch. Okay, let's look on page 11 maybe. I don't know. Page 11. Page 11. Mensch definition. What does a mensch mean? A mensch means, according to the Webster's Dictionary, a person of integrity and honor. And according to Webster's Dictionary, if somebody is being a mensch, you call them they're being menschy. But I don't know who made that up. In Yiddish, you know how you say somebody's being menschy? Menschlich. Ever heard that before? Oh, you're so menschlich. That's so menschlich. You're dressed very menschlich. What you just did was very menschlich. So you are mensch, or the adjective is you were acting menschlich. So if somebody does something very, very kind, if your car breaks down, somebody stops by next to you to help you out, what do you say? Oh, you're such a mensch. Can you imagine saying that in English? Wow, you're such a human being. Oh, what? Just doesn't work. You know you're a real person. It doesn't work. Even though they're both meant to say the same thing. A mensch. You're saying Yiddish. If you're speaking Yiddish, you mean somebody's a human being, you say a mensch. But even, you're right, Zaya mensch, become a mensch, or even just you are a mensch. That's what a human being is, a mensch. But in the Yiddish language, it's a lot more than just saying, oh, this is your species. It's saying something about you. And that's something that's a Torah value. That part of being a human is that you're more than an animal. Let's read text 6. This is such a fascinating idea, such a powerful idea. Text 6 on page 12. And where are we holding over here? Remind me your name, Beth? Oh, no, Barbara. Would you want to read, Babs?
No, go ahead.
No.
Okay, so there you go. Beth.
What is the Torah definition of a human? A human has the capacity for self-assessment. A human has the mental and moral capacity to override impulse. Can a dog decide to go on a diet? A human can choose to follow his moral compass instead of his physical inclination. A human can calculate consequences beyond the immediate. That is the Torah description of a human, the Torah definition of a mensch, something we should all strive for. Interestingly, the term has different connotations when used in American parlance. When a person is weak and less than noble, impulse-driven, instead of morally focused, what do we say? Listen, he's only human. In our vernacular, recognizing that a person is human is acknowledging his inherent weakness. We see a human as inherently flawed and morally feeble. We cut a guy slack because we know he can't reach a noble goal. After all, he's only human. What can you really expect from this person of flesh and blood? Think about it. The Torah, a Jewish term of human, mensch, is something to strive for, while the American human is a fallback position in case of moral failure.
Such a powerful idea. There's literally the difference of what you tell, I'm a human being or I'm a mensch. Or to use the Hebrew word, I'm an ish, I'm an adam. These mean different things. Right? What did Bill Clinton say when he finally admitted that he had relations with that woman, right?
I'm sorry.
Did he even say that? No, he says, no, you have to understand what I was going through. I had a lot going on. That's what he says. He says, people just don't understand what I was going through. It's a hard job. That's the American definition of a human. I'm a human. You got to understand. I was going through a lot. What do you want from me? That's human. That's not mensch. The very definition of being a human being is that you are something exemplary. It means that you're somebody who transcends your nature. Your nature doesn't shape you. You shape your nature. You could look back at yourself and say, you know what? I'm a better person than I was half a year ago, than I was a month ago. I'm a deeper person. I'm more mature. This whole concept, I'm a changing, evolving person. I'm actively growing. This is what King Solomon is telling us according to Kabbalah. The animal pulls you down. We do have a little bit of an animal within us. We all have a little bit of a force, a primal force within us, which does pull us downward and wants us to just sink deeper into that hollow space of pleasure and selfishness and just that. The Yetzer Hara. But you need to understand that that's not what makes you a human. You are a human, and the human needs to rise above. Because of this, and psychology backs this up as well, something very, very important to the human being, and something which gives the human being a very strong sense of satisfaction, is personal growth. When a person grows, they really feel good about themselves in a healthy way, in a long-lasting, real deep way. What does that personal growth look like? There's a lot of different versions of it. But one of the biggest, and one of really the worst things are, when somebody gets stuck in who they are, which is a very big part, I think, of Western civilization. That, like, you become an adult and you go to college and you got your degree and kind of you're done learning. Even that whole concept that in Judaism, learning never really ends. There is no end date, there's no beginning date, and learning is not something we should do in schools. A Jew studies Torah every single day. It's not just about accumulating more knowledge. It's about working through things, think about things, let things challenge your brain, mature. It's something very, very powerful about learning a new idea, and you really feel that I grew. I have more depth inside of me. I'm not anymore like a teenager, right? There's a Yiddish saying, another good Yiddish saying, that age is not defined by what it says on your passport. Your passport could say one thing, but that's not your real age. Which means, yeah, you want to know how many years you happen to have existed on this planet Earth, look at your passport. But where are you internally? Age is something which happens inside of you. You need to age yourself. You need to mature yourself. Now, that's not meant to be a condescending point. There's every single day that you're alive, I am actively growing. How do you grow? You have to grow by challenging yourself. You have to grow by growing. You have to make that a real effort. And it has to be that a person will have to look back and say, I can really see that in the past 6 months I grew. Past 12 months I grew. Emotionally, intellectually, just a deeper connection with myself, with others, everything. It's such a powerful idea. This idea is the first layer what Judaism teaches us is integral to having self-alignment. A tree is always growing. A tree is always growing. A human being has to always grow. The second you see a tree stop growing, you know that it's over. It's done. A human being has to always be in growth mode. So, what's the difference between the mensch and the human? The difference is the animal has the impulse, has instinct. Human being also has that impulse, but we have the ability to restrain that instinct with the power of our mind. We can transcend our nature and make ourselves into something better than who we were before. And then one more point over here. Okay. Now here's the big thing. Let's now read a quote from the Talmud. The Talmud tells us this, but it's a little bit of a cryptic statement. Let's go back to text number 4. Text number 4 on page 10, and Daniel, you're up.
What is the meaning of the verse? For the trees of the field is a human. Is man actually a tree of the field? Earlier in the same verse it is written, for from them you shall eat, and you shall not cut them down. And it is written in the next verse, however, if it is a tree that you know is not a food tree, you may destroy and cut it down. This indicates that there are certain trees that may be cut down, while others may not be destroyed. How so? If a Torah scholar is worthy, from them you shall eat, and you shall not cut them down. But if he is not worthy, you may destroy and cut down.
Okay, so here's a layer of interpretation. Now we need to really think about this. The Talmud is saying like this. What is the meaning that man is a tree of the field? Especially in the context. The context is, if there's a tree that is fruit-bearing, don't cut it down. But if it's a tree that has no fruit, then you could cut it down. It says like this. If you bump into a Torah scholar, you got to ask a question. I don't care if he's a scholar, the Talmud says. There's a word over here that in the English is translated to worthy. Is he a worthy Torah scholar? The Hebrew word is hagun. Hagun represents moral character.
Hagun?
Hagun. Which I guess we could just call a mensch. Is he a Torah scholar? But is he a mensch? Oh, if he's a mensch, then keep him. In other words, keep him in your life. This is a good person in your life. It could be he's a great Torah scholar. It could be he's a brilliant person. He's very smart. But is this person hagun? Is this person worthy? Is this person a mensch? Does their moral character reflect the wisdom that they have inside of them? If not, then, as the Talmud says, cut down from your life, meaning this is not somebody you need in your life. This is not necessarily the best company. What's the Talmud saying over here? Something very, very deep. The most important part of being a human, of being a healthy tree, is that you are fruit-bearing. Being fruit-bearing means that you're growing in a way, not just I'm smarter, not just I'm more sophisticated, but that it shows in my fruit, it shows in my actions, it shows in my moral character. That's what's important over here. So, what's worthy is the personal growth, that we are becoming better people. Unworthy is unrefined character. A tree could grow, but it doesn't give off something real to others. This is what Judaism is all about. You know, in Western civilization, the smarter somebody is, usually the more they're respected, no? Oh, this guy is very brilliant. He's a scholar. And what you see over here, Judaism is a little bit taking that attitude and throwing it under the bus. I don't care how smart you are. The goal is not to become brilliant. The goal is to become a good person.
Say it again.
The goal is not to become brilliant. The goal is that that brilliance should translate into who you are. Are you a changed person? They say the story that once there's somebody, a yeshiva student, who went to his rabbi and said, Rabbi, I've accomplished something amazing. I've gone through the entire Talmud, which is a major, major feat. It could take years to go through the whole Talmud. And the rabbi said, okay, but how much of the Talmud went through you? Ooh, Okay, you want to be smart. I actually just saw this. There was a correspondence between a young Jewish student studying in university in Tel Aviv in Israel, and he was corresponding to the Rebbe about different issues that he had in his thought. And the Rebbe shared with him a very, very interesting observation. The Rebbe said, I studied in college. The Rebbe studied in the Sorbonne in France, and the Rebbe studied in France and in Germany, in top universities. And the Rebbe says, my professors won Nobel Prizes. And the Rebbe says, I saw a very big disconnect. These people were brilliant, but when it came to their personal lives, they made a very big disconnect between the wisdom that they had and how this would affect them on a personal basis. That's what I saw. And they never once thought, the Rebbe says, how their ideas and their wisdoms that they're uncovering is going to change the way they live their life today. And the Rebbe says their lives are basically static. People are used to not thinking about life and growth for decades. People don't challenge themselves. Who am I? Am I sure that I like my lifestyle? We're scared of such questions, right? The animal doesn't like such questions. It scares us. But the Rebbe's like, how could you be a professor and not be asking such questions? It bothered the Rebbe that noble laureates are lacking that self-awareness. This is what it means to be a human. The point is, if we're growing, that's what gives us a very deep sense of health, of satisfaction, and I am living a meaningful life. I can say I grew this year, right? I know every single year or two I gotta hire somebody to come and trim my trees. It's a real thing. Trees are actively growing. They're never, right? They're always moving. That's the idea. Okay, dear friends, before we move on to the next section, let us take a moment to do this exercise over here on page 13. Most importantly, and I'm not going to ask any of you to share this, I want each of you to answer and just think a little bit, question number 2 on page 13. What's something you could look in your life and say, you know what, this is an area that I could actively get myself growing a little bit. And then if you want to do question number 3, maybe what's a way to actually do it, to grow. I want to mention that we have wonderful snacks in the back, and it's healthy. So, you still something to eat, that's a good thing for you. Okay, so let's take a moment over here. What's something that we could get inspired, take to heart from today's class, that we could grow a little bit and improve in our lives? How are we doing? Ready for number 2? Number 2 on today's agenda. So number 1 was the need for growth. We need to be growing internally as people. Number 2 is, I actually remember, I think it was when he turned like 5 or 6. And my son Mendel, who God bless him with a very, very deep head. He has a lot of good self-awareness. He's a very deep thinker, my little Mendel. I remember his very deep he was very, very stressed out. Like he was very disappointed on one of his birthdays. Maybe it was 4 when he was turning 4 or 5. That we told him your birthday's coming up, and he thought like something major is going to happen on his birthday. Like, you're going to be able to feel something changing. And he literally had like the pain of like, it's my birthday. It's like, why did nothing happen? Like I didn't grow a foot. I didn't like, like I'm the same old me, right? Same old Joe. And like I said, no, Mendel, the one who you have to grow. It's not going to happen. It's not going to wake up. You have to make it within yourself. A birthday is not a privilege. It's a call to action. Another year. So how did you grow this year? How are you going to grow? But it was like so fast. I never once thought about that in my life. He's a 5-year-old. He's getting disturbed. That like, why did nothing change today? Like, it's not fair. Now I'm not 4, I'm 5. Okay. It's amazing. All right. Some kids are very deep. Okay. Next one. Next thing over here is that a tree, what's a good tree? A good tree, tells us the Torah, is a tree that gives off fruit. So a tree is always growing, and the nature of a tree is that a tree is producing, which is why we call it produce. This is the product of productivity, creativity. Trees are growing. There's actually something amazing about it. Why do we celebrate the 15th of Shavat as Tu B'Shvat, as the New Year for trees? Why that date? It's actually dead in the winter. If you want to look at a tree and say, when is a tree the most dead? Tu B'Shvat. That's when there's not a single leaf left in there. That's when the trees all look bare. Oh, this is when you celebrate the birthday? That's when it starts the process of creating, of new productivity, new fruit. New life begins on Tu B'Shvat. That is when, in the dead of winter, that the tree is starting to crank itself back up to get ready for more production. That's what the Talmud says. So what are we celebrating for the New Year for trees? Not its existence. Not its bark. It's productivity. It's here to do something. The next point we're going to be learning over here is that essential to a human being's health is that we are being productive. Okay, now, generally, we tend to think at being productive, I don't mean being productive as in, helping somebody, healing cancer. I mean just simply, you're doing something. What are you doing today? Are you doing something that is creative, productive, doing something to help anybody, or not just help anybody, you're doing something. Work. I'm working today. Judaism sees this is very, very important. Usually we tend to think as work as like a necessary evil. I don't want to work. 9 to 5 jobs, they're hard. I have to do it because I have to feed my family. I have to do it because I have bills to pay. What happens if I win the lottery? What happens if I make so much money that I can retire when I'm 37 years old? What then? So again, Western culture would say, good for you. Now you get to live the fun life. You don't have to work anymore. Judaism actually tells us that working is very, very critical to human health. It's not just about making money. That's the bonus of it. You have to be productive. Something, somewhere. Volunteer, not only because you're helping somebody else, but that you are actively being productive. Our sages tell us like this, that it was like an observation of their times. The sages in Babylonia saw that the Babylonian workers on the port city of Mechoza in ancient Babylon, when they would stop working, they would literally start getting ill. They would start getting sick. All of a sudden, every single flu that comes, I'm sick for a week. But when they worked, they were healthy. Their immune system was good when they were working. Which means even they realize that it's healthy for a human being to be active. We need to be active. Why is this? Let's read text number 9 from the Talmud. This is a very deep observation of the psychology of a human being. Carrie, text 9, page 17.
A person prefers one measure of their own over 9 measures of their friends.
Human nature is that we have a lot more nachas. We have a lot more fulfillment from something that we earned on our own. And human nature is that if I could get 9 times this for free, but I could earn it myself and get one part, that's what a human being wants. A human being ultimately wants to be productive, wants to create on their own. It's a very deep need. And if we're not being productive, we are not being healthy. The Rebbe was actually a very, very core believer of this basic premise, that mental health, if you want to help mental health, the first step is very simply make sure the person is healthy as a human being. There was a teenager who was dealing with just real depression and just couldn't get anything going in life and sleeping the whole day, And the parents were just very just stuck. This kid's miserable. And the Rebbe said, they thought they needed major work. Who knows what? The Rebbe said, very, very simple. Get this kid a job. The Rebbe wasn't being cynical that the kid has too much time in his hands. The Rebbe says, a human being can't be happy if they're not being productive. It's just nature. Tell this kid he's going to be happy if he's working. The problem is, here's the problem. The kid came from a very affluent family, and he felt it degrading to just get a job, working in a grocery store. He didn't like that. So the Rebbe told the parents you have to teach the child that the way it works in America is that people climb the ladder. You start at the bottom, you climb the ladder, and that's actually a source of pride. All successful people say, I climbed the ladder from the bottom. So tell this kid that he should actually feel very empowered, feel good about himself. You start at the bottom, you'll do good work, you'll feel good about yourself, you'll slowly climb, you'll become a manager. That was saying, you don't need to look for a major psychoanalyst to, crack open your son's head and heart to figure out what's wrong over here. Your son's an adult. He needs productivity to feel healthy as a human being. Period. This is this Jewish value that we need the joy that we are doing something. Even if it's not terribly meaningful, we're being productive. Something is happening with us. This is also why in Judaism in general is against the concept of retirement. Now, it doesn't mean that in your 80s you have to be working as you were as a 40-year-old. Okay, you could slow down, you could find something which befits your age and stage in life. But the whole concept, days on end could go by and there's nothing doing in your life is not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not a good long-term plan.
5 years, that's the step. Within 5 years, men who've been senior executives who retire and have nothing to do, they die within 5 years.
Within 5 years. But yeah. It's not good. It's not healthy. But the most important thing is not only to avoid death, but to be living a real human life. A mensch. I'm doing something. All right. So that's point number 2. Point number 2 is that there needs to be productivity. Life is meaningful, not just through success, but by constantly creating and producing. I am a productive human being. All right. Ready for the next one? Before we go to the next one, we got to do again the exercise. Page 17. How could we maybe take this to heart? How could we try to be more productive in our lives and to give us that sense of something has moved today? We've done something. We've simply accomplished something. Some of you know that I'm working right now on a book project, translating and elucidating the Tanya, with my co-author. His name is Tzvi Freeman. Some of you may know his articles. He's very prolific online. Tzvi Freeman, Rabbi Tzvi Freeman. So he just turned 70. It's cute that I'm at the beginning of my career, so to speak. And he just turned 70. He just started learning how to play a cello. All right, as if he was bored, started learning to play a cello. Well, he loves cello. But he says, I feel it. I need things moving in my life. I don't want to get old. So I need to be productive. Learn how to play a new instrument. It's a beautiful attitude. I can't get old. So if I'm slowing down in one area, which is very possible that happens, we can't keep up work the same way when we were younger. Doesn't matter. There has to be something that we're doing that's teaching us something new. We feel good about ourselves. We accomplished something today. That's absolutely critical. All right. That is productivity. That even if our needs are met, we as humans are hardwired for the need to produce. Number 3 is giving. We as human beings, health for a human being is that we are giving. We have an innate desire to give, and we can only feel fulfilled when we are benefiting the world around us. Let's read text 10, another source from the Talmud about the relationship between human beings and trees. Here's the setup for the story. The setup of the story is that there was a great sage who lived in Babylonia in the 200s, 3rd century. His name was Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman was very, very wealthy. He was very wise. He was a Torah scholar. He was like part of the Jewish aristocracy. He was a big shot. Everything was going well. A major scholar, very affluent, and just everything was beautiful about life. Okay, Jews in Babylonia had it much better than the Jews of Israel those days. He had a visit from a great sage from Israel, whose name was Rabbi Yitzchak. So Rabbi Yitzchak is coming to visit the great Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman hosts Rabbi Yitzchak for a meal in his home, and as they're about to finish the meal, Rabbi Nachman, the great Rabbi Nachman, turns to Rabbi Yitzchak, the visiting rabbi from Israel, and says, "Please bless me. Before you leave, please bless me." So this is Rabbi Yitzchak's response to the very successful Rabbi Nachman. Text 10, page 19, and would you like to read, Ellen? Oh, okay. Michelle, what about you? Would you like to read? All right, Mark, we got to get a take over here. That's not terrible, don't worry. Text 10.
Okay. When they were taking leave of one another, Rabbi Nachman said to Rabbi Yitzchak, "Master, give me a blessing." Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, "I will tell you a parable. The situation is comparable to one who was walking through a desert and who was hungry, tired, and thirsty. He found a tree whose fruits were sweet and whose shade was pleasant, and a stream of water flowed beneath it. He ate from the fruits of the tree, drank from the water in the stream, and all sat in the shade of the tree. When he wished to leave, he said, Tree, with what should I bless you? If I say to you that your fruits should be sweet, the fruits are already sweet. If I say your shade should be pleasant, your shade is already pleasant. If I say that a stream of water should flow beneath you, a stream of water already flows beneath you. Rather, I will bless you as follows. Maybe God's will that all saplings that the plant from you be like you. So is with you. With what shall I bless you? If I bless you with Torah, you already have Torah. If I bless you with wealth, you already have wealth. If I bless you with children, you already have children. Rather, may it be God's will that your offspring shall be like you.
All right, so it's a very beautiful analogy. But once again, we see that the sages are going back to comparing human beings to trees. Every single force of nature is part of an ecosystem. And every single force of nature interacts and is integral to the ecosystem. I remember reading once, if I'm not mistaken, it was in Yellowstone National Park, that somebody decided, I think in the 1960s, that it was terrible that so many deer are being eaten by wolves in the Yellowstone National Park. So he said, you know what, let's pull out wolves from the park. Grand Canyon it was? By the way, I was always scared I made this up. I remember reading it as a kid, but he's saying it's a real thing.
It's a true story.
True story, Grand Canyon it was. And then what happened? So it's like a funny thing to like mix in with nature, right? They always say, don't mix in with nature. What happened was the deer started overpopulating to the point that it was so oversaturated, there wasn't enough vegetation to feed all these deer. And they started dying from hunger. So they realized, okay, we got to bring the wolves back in. So, okay, so everything in nature automatically interacts with the rest of nature. An animal dies, automatically it's feeding the earth, it's feeding other animals. Everything's part of a larger ecosystem. But if there's one force of nature that you could say is an anchor, not just for itself, it doesn't live for itself. It lives for the rest of its environment. Hands down, that's what a tree is. A tree, as much as it lives for itself, it is unbelievably giving to its environment. It's not just that I'm here and if I happen to somehow give something to my environment, okay, wonderful, good. It's like a cow. Cows, we use the dung from cows for fertilization, right? Okay, but a cow's not living for give you dung, right? Hey, dung, take my dung. I don't need it anymore, right? I'm done with my dung. Okay. But a tree, its whole existence really, I apologize for the example, but no, I'm trying to bring out a point over here. A tree's whole existence is serving its environment. What it does to the ear, they say that it's not just trees are part of an environment, they shape their environment. You plant a tree, all of a sudden you have new birds coming. It affects everything. Everything is there to support, is being supported by the tree. What it does to the carbon monoxide, what it does to the air quality, everything is being affected. Trees give to their environments. So this sage, Rabbi Yitzchak, is trying to tell Rabbi Nachman, you are a successful tree. This is what it means to be successful. Not just that you have a lot, but you're so giving. You're giving to the world so much. Fresh water, you give you give shade, you give beauty. This idea that not just we are growing, not just we are productive, that we're doing something, but that we are also actively giving to our environment. I'm not just here, but I'm actively giving. People are benefiting from my presence. That is something very, very powerful to the human condition. We need that. One of the darkest things for a human being to have is to feel I don't matter. I don't matter to nobody. Nobody is being helped from me. And the gift of life for a human being is I am benefiting somebody else. Let's read text 11, which is a text from psychology. Go for it, yes. Text 11, page 21.
There is great comfort in believing that your life and actions matter in the grand scheme of things. This conviction is referred to as existential mattering and is a strong component of the experience of meaning in life. While the concept of existential mattering often invokes images of famous and infamous people who have done extraordinarily things in their lives, many people gain a sense of mattering through avenues more easily traversed. Research shows that feeling that you have made a positive influence on others is unsurprisingly almost always associated with the belief that your life is meaningful. Existential mattering then is often rooted in the sense that you matter to others, from helping strangers in need and providing social support to loved ones to simply being a reliable friend.
We're not just being a good person, we help somebody. It's a very big part of us as human beings feeling I'm healthy. And what this text calls is existential mattering. That's a very interesting term. Mattering. Am I mattering in this world? That's a very, very big question. And that is, Judaism teaches, essential to the human experience, which means we don't help people because people are in need. And God tells us, okay, you need to be a good person, so go help that other person. That's also true. But even on a selfish level, you need to give because if not, it's unhealthy. You got to be giving. Look for opportunities. As the Talmud puts it, look in text 12. This is from a quote from the great Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva responded, "My son, more than the calf desires to nurse, the cow wants to give milk." You think the cow's giving milk because somebody who needs the milk? No, I need to give. What he's saying is, a human needs to give. That's what it means to be a human. I want to tell you something fascinating. We're running a little bit low on time here, but I got to share this with you. A few years ago, I read an unbelievable correspondence from the Rebbe with a professor who lived in Israel. He was a big kibbutznik, and he came from Russia, and he had very strong communist and socialist leanings. That was his philosophy. That was his ideology. And he reached out to the Rebbe. This was in 1956. 1956. He writes to the Rebbe that with all due respect, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, with all due respect, if you're trying to help make the world a better place, we can't ignore the most important injustice that exists. And what he tells the Rebbe is you're wasting your time if you are ignoring this issue. What's the issue? Inequality. The whole idea that we could be living in a modern world, that somebody is more privileged than somebody else, has to be eradicated. And there needs to be absolute equality in privileges and in... Right? This is he was coming with that the Rebbe has to champion this. The Rebbe writes back like this. The Rebbe says, with all due respect to you, I very much disagree with your premise. The inequality that God built into our reality, into society, into human nature, is not a bug, it's a feature. Because the Rebbe says, if everybody had everything, and if everybody had everything that everybody else had, that would mean that nobody needs anybody. And it also means you don't have anything to give to anybody else. And the Rebbe says that's deeply unhealthy for a human being. People can't be healthy and happy if they don't have that. What gives a person a sense of feeling is that they're part of their ecosystem. I have a gift, and I could share it with somebody else. And the Rebbe says something so beautiful. The Rebbe quotes a medrash, which I'm going to read with you in a moment, which anchors this idea. And the Rebbe says the way God made this world is that every single person alive is a giver. Every single person is wealthy in something, and every single person is needy in something. The Rebbe says it's not just about wealth. It's about anything. It could be your friendship. It could be your wisdom, your presence. Every single person has something that only you could provide to your ecosystem, which means everybody else needs you for something, and you need everybody else for something else. Health is only when you are part of that system. When you lock yourself into your own thing, I'm not giving anything to you, because you have the same thing as me. No one needs anybody. Everybody's good. That actually tears apart at our human nature. Deeply unhealthy. So the Rebbe says, no. The way to respond to this injustice is by recognizing your role. Step up to the plate. Another person is lacking something. Do you have it? Then go and give it. And you're also lacking something. Go get it from somebody else. Let's read this in text 13. Text 13, page 22. And where are we holding over here? Barbara.
King David said to God, Master of the universe, establish equity in your world by making rich and poor the same. God replied, if such were the case, who would preserve kindness and truth? If all were rich or all were poor, who would be able to do acts of kindness?
God is saying, no, it needs to be this way. There needs to be rich and poor. And again, rich and poor is not only money. We think about it always in terms of financially. It means everything. Every single person needs something from somebody else for their own life. One last text on this, which is really mind-blowing. It just shows you the Jewish attitude on this. From Jewish law. And Dana, text 14. Give us a little read over here.
Everyone is obligated to give charity. Even a poor person who relies on charitable support themselves must give from what they receive.
Very interesting law. We usually think that let the wealthy people, let the people who have something left over, let them give charity. Jewish law is no Jew is absolved from giving charity. Even if you're poor, even if you're living off of charity, so give some charity from what you just got. How does that make sense? If I'm poor, why am I giving charity? And the answer is because charity is not just a practical tool to help people who are poor. And if you have extra money, somebody else needs the money, please be kind and give him money. It's an essential part of being healthy. A human being needs to give. There's a beautiful dignity that I get to help somebody else. I can give charity. It feels good to give charity. I'm giving. I'm helping. I'm giving for something I have for myself. I'm giving to somebody else. There are so many studies done on this. They once did a study, fascinating study, on a bunch of employees who got a bonus, like a holiday bonus. And then they went and did a study what they spent that money on and their happiness level. What they saw was anybody who spent some of that extra bonus on helping others, even if it was only 5% of what they got in the bonus, they were clearly happier than the people who spent all the money on themselves. It makes us happy. It makes us happy to be giving. Why? Because that is part of what it means to be a human. Just like trees exist to give, we need to realize that if we're not giving, we're not going to be happy. Okay, dear friends, we are almost done here. We have one more point to make over here before we're going to have to wrap up the class over here. There we go. The need to give. Inequity opens the opportunity for giving. We don't give because there's inequality. There's inequality. It's like that. We could all be givers. God designed us that each of us could be a giver, and we need to be givers in whichever way we can. Dear friends, let's do the exercise on page 23, and we have one more point before we got to wrap up for today. In which areas can we try? Let's try to identify where we could, something practical, where we could be a little bit more in a giving mode in our lives. What's something that I have that I could give to somebody else? Give ourselves the gift of giving. All right, dear friends. The final point that Judaism is going to teach us that is essential to humanity's health is relationships. I don't mean family relationships, although that's part of it, but relationships in all forms, being social, being part of a group of people. That absolutely includes family. Judaism is a very, very big proponent that it is integral for a human being to be married, to have children, to have families. It's very, very critical, not just you're doing a mitzvah. To be healthy. To be healthy, you need to have family. Mushki's grandfather actually lost his wife at an adult age. She passed away. Mushki's grandmother passed away pretty young, relatively young. And her great-grandfather. And her great-grandfather was a very romantic person, and he really loved dearly his wife. And he could not imagine remarrying after his loss of her. And Rebbe really, really pushed him hard. You got to. He says, "How could I do it to my wife? We were together since we were 20 years old. How could I imagine moving on?" And the Rebbe says, "I promise that your wife in heaven wants you to get married. She wants to see you being happy. Go get married." In his old age, Rebbe wanted him to get married. It's very important. People need relationships. It's a major part of feeling healthy and feeling I'm having a meaningful life. Text 15, dear friends, on page 25. Where are we up to? Not Patrick. So, right, you don't want to read Patrick, right? So, Alex, give us a read. Text 15.
If you ask people what their most significant sources of meaning in life are, they perhaps unsurprisingly list their close relationships. That's because one of the pillars of meaningful life is a sense of belonging. When people feel like they belong, according to psychologist Mark Leary and Roy Baumeister, it's because they are in relationships with others based on mutual care.
There's something even more than that. Animals also, you could say, are social. There are a lot of social animals. But Jewish mysticism actually teaches us there's a very big difference. When animals are social, they're actually not really being deeply integrated. They're not opening themselves up on an emotional level to each other. It's more practical, okay? The way we hunt is in a pack. We exist, we protect ourselves as a pack. Human beings are able to communicate, are able to share and open up our lives to each other emotionally, to really be present in each other's lives. That's something which is uniquely human. Nothing on this planet can really have real relationships, real bonds, real community, real friendships. That's essential. Text 17 from the great Maimonides, Yulia. This is a very powerful text.
God formed the human.
No, text 17. We're skipping a bit.
Oh, sorry.
Text 17, 26. Page 26.
Human beings are social by nature, and their nature compels them to gather together with others. They are not like other living creatures, which have no necessity to congregate. Rather, their nature requires social gathering as an absolute necessity.
This is necessity. This is baseline requirement. To be healthy, we need these. So, dear friends, on the one hand, I think we intuitively kind of knew everything we learned today. But we have to realize these are not just nice things, nice amenities that we can have in our life. Judaism teaches us that in order to be healthy, we need to live up to our humanity. And it's impossible to feel good about ourselves and to feel that we're living healthy, meaningful lives if we don't have these over here. So, dear friends, the last word is relationships. We are communicators. We have to connect with others deeply and spiritually. This is what we're going to be learning. This is layer number one, baseline, that we need to learn before we can continue the journey of finding meaning and finding purpose. That we need to be healthy human beings. We need to be living up to what it means to be a human being, a mensch. And these are not added features. These are baseline stuff that a human being needs, like the oxygen that we breathe on. We need to be growing. That needs to be a part. That's not a luxury. This is a necessity. We're growing people. We are being productive. We're active in something. We are giving. And that we have relationships. Now, dear friends, each of us, I know that for sure myself, I could look at some of these and I could say, you know what? I could be doing better at being a good, healthy human being. I need to grow in this. This class is not so much about a learning, but it's a chance for us to challenge ourselves. How could I make my life a little bit more meaningful? What's some of these areas where I'll say, you know what? How could I step up and give myself the gift of having more meaning because I'm more anchored to who I am. I have deep roots and I'm strong with those roots. And that was our opening class today. And dear friends, next week we continue our journey to make or not to make meaning with lesson number 2. I want to thank you all so much for joining with our opening class. God bless you all. Thank you, Bill. And the conversation continues. If you have any thoughts, any questions, I look forward to hearing from you, talking with you. This is, God willing, going to be a beautiful journey together. So thank you all for joining.